ExxonMobil and Chevron. The U.S. government and the rich elites are afraid of our ability to converge our struggles internationally to demand the basic human dignity, the right to life, the right to sovereignty. Our power is amplified through unity and organization, and the last thing we want, and last thing they want, is our solidarity with the people of Venezuela. That's why corporate media needs to lie. They need to lie to sell us their interests, and this is why the government must strangulate Venezuela. While the people of Venezuela have demonstrated their resilience and heroism, they must do so under the weight of real material impact of the U.S. war machine. The people in Venezuela are fighting for their right to sovereignty. Isn't that what we all want? Food, shelter, healthcare? Yes! As we, the people of the belly of the beast, refuse to let our tax dollars fund a war based on lies, we see through the fake crocodile tears by Trump and his elite buddies living in the United States. We know what a humanitarian crisis is. A humanitarian crisis is when luxury condos are built while tents line the block around them. A humanitarian crisis is where we're forced to choose our paycheck to pay rent or put food on the table. A humanitarian crisis is where our education continues to be defunded, or when drug overdoses and policing become so systematic, so endemic, that it's considered a public health crisis. And lastly, a humanitarian crisis is when people die because we can't afford health care. And instead, the government is proposing a 5% increase to $750 billion for the 2020 military budget. What the people of Venezuela need from us is our determined support for the right to self-determination, their right to their own future based on their needs and their interests. With every new sensationalized headline, the situation in Venezuela becomes increasingly volatile, increasingly precarious, and we need to continue to mobilize and hit the streets. And should the U.S. escalate even more aggression? More importantly, we need to sustain this movement. There are over 40 endorsing organizations here today, and we need you to join us. Again, I am with the Answer Coalition, and there are folks in the crowd right now with clipboards. If you haven't spoken to an organizer, speak to an organizer, get involved. We need you to continue to hit the streets with us. And just so y'all know, we're going to hold some sort of teach-in on the 19th or 20th of April to continue the education around Venezuela, to dispel the lies. Our solidarity with Venezuela is vital for the struggle against imperialism. It is our collective duty to pressure the U.S. to withdraw its aggression. We demand hands up Venezuela now. What do we want?
U.S. out.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
U.S. out.
When do we want it?
Now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Hands up!
Venezuela.
Hands up!
Venezuela.
Hands up!
Venezuela.
All right, next we have Jim Lafferty. Jim Lafferty is the Executive Director Emeritus of the National Lawyers Guild in Los Angeles and is the host of the Lawyers Guild show on Pacifica Radio. Welcome, Jim.
Well, it is so good to see you here today. You know, the Trump administration was counting on the fact that we couldn't do this. Once again, I know it's hard to believe Trump is wrong. But sisters and brothers, make no mistake about it. What Trump is already doing in Venezuela is war. He has already committed war crimes in Venezuela. Sanctions that have been killing innocent people in Venezuela are war crimes. When you help blow up dams and other infrastructure in a country that is not causing you any trouble whatsoever, that is an act of war. When you are shuffling drugs, smuggling guns, smuggling ammunition smuggling all sorts of weapons to the opposition in Venezuela, that is an act of war. When you have already got the Southern Command of the United States military engaging in military maneuvers in preparation for waging the actual war in Venezuela, that is an act of war. In short, Donald Trump, to the surprise of no one here, I'm sure, is already a war criminal. One of the things I find so utterly disgusting, and it's so much that's disgusting about the guy, it's hard to know what to pick out, but in terms of what we're talking about today, think about it. He does everything within his power to create a humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, with the sanctions, with the taking over of Citgo oil, with the cutting off of, you know what he's done, all the kinds of things he's done to, and then, having attempted to create that humanitarian crisis, he offers a few friggin' tons of food in order to provide a cover for him to take over Venezuela. The other thing that is astonishingly hypocritical about all this, and I notice I haven't seen anything in the mainstream media about it yet, is this small fact. How many millions of dollars, how many hours of congressional investigation and newspaper investigations have gone on already since our last election over the supposed meddling of Russia in the U.S. elections? And oh my God, that's the crime of the century. Trump doesn't worry about meddling. He gets right down to it. We're simply going to march in, have a coup, install the puppet government that will serve the economic interest of the elite of this country, and to hell with the people of Venezuela. And I don't see the press talking about that hypocrisy. Well, there's some good news. There's some good news. Because I believe in the spirit, the courage, the determination of the Venezuelan people to carry on the libertarian revolution started with Chavez and ending today. And today we announced that we have joined all over the country and the world, frankly. We have joined that Bolivarian revolution. We believe in our sisters and brothers in Venezuela. We will not desert our sisters and brothers in Venezuela. And we know from our own history that we together have the power to do what needs to be done. We know that if we don't rely on anyone but ourselves, if we come back to the streets as often as we must, there is no war, there is no abomination on the face of this earth that we, the people united together, cannot defeat. History itself is on our side. The people of Venezuela will survive. The Bolivarian revolution will continue. Thank you, sisters and brothers.
No more sanctions, no more lies. Venezuela's unified. 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 All right, so we're gonna keep it moving along right here. I know it's hot, so stick with it. We got a really, really good program. Next up, I want to invite Jack Ite from Socal 350 Climate Action. Give him a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. I have a website, wilderutopia.com. We're part of 350.org doing climate activism all across internationally and the U.S. and we're behind getting people organized in LA. And what we're seeing here is another war for oil. And this is part of our addiction to oil here. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world, larger than the tar sands in Alberta, and it's very similar oil than the tar sands. It's very thick, and that's why it needs to be shipped into Houston, the same area near Houston. Actually, Port Arthur, Texas, has the refineries to handle that stuff. And because They haven't been able to control the oil industry in Venezuela. They need to take it over to keep that business model which is killing the earth. That is why they bother. It's not about humanitarian, it's about the oil. Basically, we're looking at extreme problems with oil, and it's extreme what's happening. I lived in Honduras and worked in Honduras for years, actually, and saw the coup in Honduras and what happened, how they took over the entire government. It was not a great government before 2009, but because of a nominal leftist Zelaya, who was in charge of the country at the time, who was making a deal for reduced cost oil from Venezuela at the time, the U.S. decided it was time to overthrow that country. And so what's happened now is a failed state in Honduras. It is taken over by multinational corporations and the drug trade. It is it's one of the most dangerous places on the earth. Now the comparison would be Nicaragua. I also worked for the Sandinista government in Nicaragua back a long time ago. So I worked for the original Sandinistas, doing some urban planning. That's my thing, and I had to survey a country that had undergone absolutely devastation through the blockade and a decade of war against them, and seeing the people how they survived. Now the difference in Nicaragua today. Things aren't perfect there, but there are not mass migrations leaving Nicaragua. It is not the most dangerous place it's actually relatively safe comparatively. On the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua, the drug traffic passes Nicaragua headed for Honduras. So that's the difference here, and that's what's at stake. Is Honduras is kind of a sacrifice zone, headed by big oil, but it's also multinational corporations and mining. And so we have to stop this coup. We have to stop all of these coups, and we have the people together here. Thank you for listening to me, and let's stop that coup. Hands off Venezuela.
Hands off Venezuela! 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 All right, we're going to keep it going with the program. Up next, we have Valeria Espinosa, co-coordinator for Affirm LA Chapter and member of the National Executive Committee for Affirm, an anti-imperialist, transnational, feminist, women of color-led organization. Please welcome Valeria. Good afternoon, everyone. Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela! My name is Valeria Espinosa, and I stand here today on behalf of the anti-imperialist feminists of Affirm Los Angeles, who pledge solidarity with the people of Venezuela and liberation seekers around the world. We denounce the U.S. meddling and intrusion in foreign matters. We see through this nation's malice to further its corporate and neoliberal agendas. We reside in the belly of the beast. That fascist pig in chief over in Washington, he works for us, and we have a message for him. We demand that the U.S. end destabilizing nations for the sake of profit. We will not stay silent about the theft, exploitation, and violence of the imperialist agenda. As transnational feminists, we in Affirm know imperialism is directly linked to the colonization of women's bodies. Imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism. We repeatedly see foreign powers create conditions for war and conquest for their own profit. The plundering of wealth and natural resources, oil, food, energy, is one that is inextricably linked to rape and exploitation of women. Poor women and girls are the hardest hit by wars, privatization of services, overthrow of governments, the dismantling of welfare states, and the restructuring of paid and unpaid work. Women and girls are still 60% of the world's poor and the majority of the world's refugees. Girls and women comprise almost 80% of displaced persons of the third world, global south, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. We see this expulsion reflected in the high rates of femicide in Latin America and the global south. Although we women are confronted with an endless onslaught of state violence, we choose to resist. We are warriors. We women are the ones who are on the front lines of resistance and revolution. Just over a week ago, we celebrated International Women's Day, a day when women rise up globally in order to counter these systems of oppression and demand better conditions for future generations. From the Zapatista women taking up arms to combat NAFTA, to the women in Swana regions who are challenging imperialist-backed systems, it is women of the third world who hold the key to overthrow imperialism in all its forms. We know that women are intentionally targeted during these periods of invasion, since it is us who supported and led pre-capitalist forms of society. We hold the vision of what liberation looks like outside of the realms of capitalism. Our very survival as people, as womankind, is dependent on resistance across the globe. We are not reforming, we are dismantling. So today I ask you, what does the decolonial future look like to you? Imperialism has a face, and is that of a fascist, misogynistic, patriarchal, white supremacist system that thrives on the commodification of women and land. That is why we are here today, in solidarity with liberation seekers worldwide, to demand hands off Venezuela!
Hands off Venezuela!
Hands off Venezuela!
Hands off Venezuela!
An anti-imperialist future for women is liberation for all. Thank you. Hands off Venezuela!
Hands off Venezuela!
All right, if I could get all our speakers, you know who you are, to come over to the side because we're going to run through this program. I also wanted to let everyone know that on April 20th, we're going to be having a teach-in, to let people know about what's going on, what's really going on in Venezuela, and debunk all the myths. So if you're interested, we have sign-ups that people going around with sign-up sheets. Please fill out in the back over there. They're wavy. Please fill it out. Stay in touch. Follow us on social media at @answer_Los Angeles, Twitter, Instagram. Just look up Answer LA on Facebook. All right, so our next speaker is Karen Oliva of the Committee in Solidarity with the People of El Salvador. Please welcome Karen.
Hi everyone, my name is Karen Oliva. I'm here with CISPES, the Committee in Solidarity with the People of El Salvador, an anti-imperialist organization that is against U.S. intervention in El Salvador and in the rest of Latin America. I'm here because as a member of the Central American diaspora, we know very well and very personally the effects of U.S. intervention in the country. In El Salvador, we've seen that the effects of U.S. intervention have had these really deep, long-lasting impact politically, economically, emotionally. There's a lot of trauma that we still feel and that is still being felt today, because of the U.S.-backed civil war. And so because of that, that is why our organization is here today to stand against the U.S. intervention in Venezuela, because we do not want to see this country keep ruining and devastating people. And so, as has been mentioned here today, this humanitarian aid, this so-called humanitarian aid that is supposed to be for democracy is not really for that. We all know that. That's why we're all here. And so that aid is supposed to, it won't even cover the economic sanctions that have been causing already poverty and starvation in Venezuela. And so that is why we're here. And so we also are here because the threat of violence is very real right now, and so we're seeing Elliot Abrams, who is the special envoy in Venezuela. We know him. He was in El Salvador. He was complicit in the genocide of hundreds of Salvadoreños in El Salvador during the Civil War and the massacre of El Mozote. We have not forgotten what he has done. We have not forgotten all the deaths that he caused. And so that is why we're here. And if he has been the person who has been assigned to lead the policy in Venezuela, we know the implications that that's going to have, So we have to call it out. And that's why we're here, to call out that we know that this is part of the United States longer term plan of destabilizing Latin America. This is not new. This is, if we read, we have to not believe the lies that they're telling us, and have conversations with people in our family, have conversations with our friends, that's where it starts. And so we really need to counter this narrative that the United States has put out through the media. We as folks living in this country, we have the responsibility to call it out. We have the privilege and the responsibility responsibility to stand up and like call out folks, and then also call on our representatives, you know, and ask them to urge them to support legislation that will block the United States from having an armed force in Venezuela. And so that is why we're here, and that is why we say, like, fuera los Estados Unidos de Venezuela, fuera los Estados Unidos de El Salvador, y fuera los Estados Unidos de Latinoamérica. Gracias.
No más guerra, Venezuela libre.
No más guerra, Venezuela libre, dice el compañero. Hands up!
Venezuela.
Hands up!
Venezuela.
Hands up!
Venezuela.
All right, so, you know, this stage system and the movement, you know, we ain't funded by them corporations or by the U.S. government or the NGOs. We're right here. We're grassroots organizers. And so if y'all want to, interested in donating funds to the movement and to the teaching that we're hoping to have in April, please, over here at this table over here, we can accept different types of donations. So please. I also want to invite Lupita, if you're here, to please come to the stage. Next up, we have Rachel, who is a board member of Witness for Peace Southwest.
It's their last name, Rachel Plumke, cannot be pronounced. Thank you. Woo! Right on. Viva, viva. I'm also a member of the Green Party. I'm seeing my comrade Mike Feinstein right there. Green Party woke. We're calling for 50% reduction in military spending. What do you think? Yeah! The bigger military, we got to use it all the time.
Abolish the military.
Abolish the military-industrial complex. Woo! Let me tell you, I don't know about you, but I've been here way too many times. I've been here at way too many protests. Way too many times trying to get the U.S. to stop wars against other countries. I've been at way too many protests here trying to get the United States government to stop waging war against its own people. Trying to get the United States government to stop waging war against the planet. We are part of a Latin America solidarity movement. My organization I'm on the board of is called Witness for Peace Southwest. We were begun in 1982. Unfortunately, we have to exist. Unfortunately, we had to be born during the Ronald Reagan wars against Central America. As the woman before said, we will never forget, right? Yeah. We will never forget. We are the Latin America Solidarity Movement. We are dozens of groups around the country. We are hundreds of thousands of people. We have been an anti-war movement for 40 or 50 years, right, Norma? Woo! In 1980s, we were here protesting the Reagan wars against Central America. In 1989, we were right behind this building at the Federal Building, being arrested to stop the war against El Salvador, to stop the hundreds of millions of dollars going down so that young woman from Císpes had to flee and her family had to flee in the Central American diaspora because of U.S. foreign policy. Witness for Peace Southwest. We say no to the bashing of immigrants that U.S. foreign policy creates.
Thank you.
No to the lies. And I want to say a shout out in the Latin America Solidarity Movement. We always give a presente for people who are not here with us that we beloved. Can I hear a presente for Maria Guardado? Presente. Presente for our beloved Don White, the founder of Císpes. Presente. And presente still, let's shout it from the rooftop so he hears because he's at home ill. Blaise Bonpane, Office of the Americas. He is one of the grandfathers of the National Latin America Solidarity Movement. And we say, ya basta to U.S. interventions. I'd like to thank the sound man. Give him a big round of applause. And I'd like to thank the organizers, the workers, and the students who made this possible. Because it's organizers and workers and students and farmers and women and teachers that U.S. foreign policy has been murdering around Latin America for 70 years in the name of the Cold War. We say no to the U.S. Cold War in Latin America. Can I hear a no? No to the U.S. Cold War in Latin America. No more Cold War. No more Cold War like the 1954 coup against the Guatemalan government. No 1973 coup against the elected government of Salvador Allende in Chile. No more coups. No more wars like the Reagan wars throughout the 1980s that caused the Central American diaspora. And I want to tell you something. If you think about 2018,
It disconnected.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There's going to be a mic check later, so this better be on. Okay, or maybe it doesn't have to be, huh? That's the whole point of a mic check. The 2018 elections, if it was about rejecting imperialism and rejecting fascism here at home, the 2020 elections are going to be about rejecting U.S. fascism abroad. What do you think about that? Foreign policy is on the table, finally. How many years have those of us who have been working in the anti-war movement, in the Latin America solidarity movement, been waiting for this moment when Americans started to get woke and care about foreign policy? If there are any burners out here, Bernie Sanders supporters, you better start supporting and calling for burners against militarism. Look up the hashtag. We've got to move these candidates against U.S. imperialism. Because it's no accident that we are crushing the model abroad. Because if we crush the model abroad, none of us know it's possible. And none of us will demand it at home. So we say, ya basta to U.S. imperialism. Because, ya basta. And now repeat after me. This is an anti-war movement.
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 Because the U.S. is a rogue nation.
Because the U.S. is a rogue nation.
No, this is an anti-war movement.
This is an anti-war movement.
Because the U.S. military burns 100 million barrels of oil a year and is the largest polluter on planet Earth. This is an anti-war movement. Because life will trump capitalism, and because survival will trump lies, this is an anti-war movement. And this wouldn't be a righteous Los Angeles action without a mic check. Mic check. Mic check. If you can, please get your phones out. I'm going to give you a phone number that should be on speed dial for all of our phones. I see you getting your phone out. Getting your phone out. Mic check. Mic check. Repeat after me. 202. 224. 3121. One more time. 202. 224. 3121. That is the Capitol switchboard in D.C. Right now, Witness for Peace Southwest, we are also lobbying Congress. Right now, there's a Senate bill 11. Please call for SJ 11. Pass it. Please call to pass the House Resolution 1004. Look it up. I know that Code Pink's doing a lot on their website. Witness for Peace, we're doing a lot on our website. No coups, no sanctions, no war, no more.
All right. Up next, we're going to have Margaret Prescott from Women of Color of the Global Women's Strike and radio host of Sojourner Truth Radio on PKFK.
Okay, hey y'all, good to be here. Good to be here with you. And before I get going, I have a few notes here because I had 2 minutes. I hope they'll give me maybe an extra minute or so. But I want to give up a huge presente for a man who was my friend, who was a true revolutionary at heart, who was the real deal. And they thought with him in the grave that the Bolivarian Revolution would end, but it has not. And we're here. As proof of that, I want to give us a presente for President Hugo Chavez. Presente. On behalf of the Global Women's Strike and Women of Color in the Global Women's Strike, I'm here with you today to say no to U.S. intervention, militarily or otherwise, in Venezuela, and to oppose the lying corporate reporting on Venezuela. I'm also here, standing here, to say no to U.S. policies and intervention in Haiti. And I'll tell you why I'm doing that. I have a really hard time talking about Venezuela and what's going on in Venezuela without talking about Haiti. The history of both Venezuela and Haiti are intertwined. Today, as we watch the slow motion U.S. orchestrated attempted coup in Venezuela limp along, we also see in Haiti the U.S. prop up a brutal regime that they installed in that island nation, and they are complicit in the massacres and tortures going on in Haiti that get no reporting in the corporate or even the alternative media in the United States and around the world. There are massacres that took place yesterday. There are massacres that are taking place today. There's a reason that what's going on in Venezuela. You know, when the late Hugo Chavez visited Haiti after a U.S.-backed coup toppled the first democratically elected president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, the Haitian grassroots greeted President Chavez in the tens of thousands. He actually left the presidential palace and went down to the gate to greet the people. And the people said to Hugo Chavez, "You are our president until the return of President Aristide." The Haitian grassroots loved Hugo Chavez for a number of things, for his practical solidarity, but also for his anti-racist stand by declaring his pride in his African roots. Rare in the region that a leader would do that. And women in Haiti and around the world who live the impact of poverty and the lack of valuation of their work, they understand the significance of Article 88 of the Venezuelan Constitution brought in by the Bolivarian Revolution that recognizes the work of mothers and other caregivers and ensures resources for those doing this work with the least. Those of us, like myself, who spent time in Venezuela, we witnessed that women are the beating heart of the Bolivarian Revolution, and President Chavez often said that from the platform. And in Haiti, they're also the beating heart of the uprising going on there. Women are the beating heart of the ongoing uprisings against U.S. imperialism in Venezuela as well as Haiti. You know, after the Haitian Revolution, I'll take you back a little bit. The first Black Republic in the world was established. That was way back in 1804. And after that, Haiti gave Bolivar, the liberator of Latin America, refuge on 2 occasions. He not only gave Bolivar refuge, but he gave weapons. They also sent fighters and they sent ships. And today in Venezuela, you can stand on the ground where Haitians died. The Bolivarian Revolution recognizes that. We all owe a great debt to Haiti from Venezuela, but for all of us in the Americas. So at the same time that we're standing to say hands off to the U.S., hands off Venezuela, I really encourage you to find out the truth of what's going on in Haiti and also stand with the Haitian grassroots who have been victims of vicious racism for so long. You know, the Haitians asked Bolivar one thing. They said, when you go back, you stand against slavery. And the first Americas conference that happened, that Bolivar participated in, Haiti was invited, and the United States said, we're not going to sit at the table with niggers. And Bolivar didn't get through, but he never forgot that, and Hugo Chavez never forgot that, and we must never forget that. Okay. So we have to wrap our heads around this. We have to wrap our heads around the fact that the United States, yes, they're after oil in Venezuela, but it's not only the oil. They're also going after Cuba. You might notice Bolton, when they talk about Venezuela and they talk about Maduro, they also talk about getting the Cubans out of Venezuela. And we know what the Cubans are doing in Venezuela. We've seen them there. They're the doctors. They're training teachers. That's what they do throughout the Caribbean region and throughout the world. 94% of the Cubans in Venezuela, that is what they're doing. So at the same time they're spreading the propaganda that Haitians can't get medical care, they want to kick out of Venezuela in the barrios from those sloping hillsides. The Cuban doctors who are there servicing the people. But we also know that part of what the U.S. is about, they want the oil, okay? They want to go after Cuba, but they also want to make sure that there is no socialist experiment that happens anywhere in the Americas and in the world that can succeed. And that's also why they went after President Jean-Bertrand Aristide in Haiti. A lot of people don't know that. Finally, I just want to say that as we stand in solidarity with the Venezuelan Bolivarian strugglers, we have to also stand in solidarity with the people of Haiti, as I've said. Haitians today are on the streets, not like the racist Guaido-led throng backed by the U.S. in Venezuela. Pretty white. Have you seen the photos? Ramiro Funes, by the way, who's here, he's the assistant producer of Sojourner Truth. You hear his name on the show. Let's give it up for Ramiro. Young Honduran man with Garifuna roots, and he's just terrific. And he dug up this photo and showed it to me, where he showed Guaido's, operation, which was mainly 99.9.5% white, all right, and the Maduro supporters that were very mixed racially. But just as Venezuelans are trying to complete and secure their Bolivarian revolution, Haitians are also trying to complete the revolution they began way before 1804. And they, like the Bolivarian strugglers, are determined to continue to struggle until they win. And whether or not we here in the United States win our freedom depends on the victories of the peoples of movements in Venezuela and around the world, from the continents of Africa to Asia to Haiti to the Caribbean to Palestine. We will not win if they don't win. We need to wrap our minds around that. Now, the Haitians say, we will not obey. They have a slogan that says, we will not obey. And today we say, we will not obey this brutal Trump regime and all of their 1% friends. We refuse to remain silent. Long live the people's movements in Venezuela and everywhere from Africa to Haiti. U.S. out of Venezuela. U.S. hands off Venezuela. U.S. hands off Haiti. Thank you very much.
Next up, we're going to hear from Walter, who is an organizer with the Farabundo Martí Nacional Liberation Front.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Nos tienen miedo. Nos tienen miedo. Mi nombre es Walter, soy del Frente Farabundo Martí para la Liberación Nacional. En nombre del pueblo salvadoreño, queremos decirles que estamos hombro a hombro junto al pueblo de Venezuela. Estamos claramente definidos que vamos a defender la revolución bolivariana a toda costa, porque la lucha del pueblo de Venezuela es la lucha del pueblo de El Salvador, de Centroamérica, de América Latina y del mundo. Compañeros y compañeras, el gobierno salvadoreño en este momento ha declarado su solidaridad con el pueblo de Venezuela y defender el derecho de su autodeterminación. Nosotros vamos a continuar defendiendo la revolución bolivariana. Nadie se rinde, nadie tiene miedo. Aquí estamos, revolución o muerte. Gracias, compañeros.
Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Hands off Venezuela! All right, up next we're gonna have a journalist who you may know who's done really, really amazing work to debunk the myths that the government continues to say about Venezuela. So I want to welcome journalist, artist, writer, and host of the Empire Files, Abby Martin.
Hands off Venezuela! You guys, thank you so much for being here today. I know it's hot as hell. It is so important for the people of Venezuela to see and hear us here, just standing in solidarity with them. So important. And we are the children of the empire, right? We are living in the belly of the beast. We are American citizens. It is our duty to stand up against this criminal government and demand an end to U.S. imperialism around the world. U.S. sanctions have destroyed Venezuela's economy, causing severe lack of food and medicine. Yet somehow we're supposed to believe that this coup attempt is for human rights. We're supposed to believe that, to save people, to give them food and medicine, just like the U.S. claimed it was invading Iraq to liberate Iraqis. Just like they said they were bombing Libya to the Stone Age to liberate them. All of a sudden, we're supposed to believe this time it's different, right? That Donald Trump, a racist, sexist, xenophobic bigot extraordinaire, alongside of his gaggle of war criminals, just want to save people, guys. They just want to help Venezuela. John Bolton is a war criminal. Elliot Abrams is a war criminal. Trump is a war criminal. These people need to be tried for crimes against humanity at The Hague. Yet here we are watching them feign outrage about Venezuela when they are starving millions of people in Yemen, bombing Muslims on a daily basis around the world. Millions of lives are at stake right now. Trump is already looking to escalate this into a full-blown war. We already saw his little minion, Marco Rubio, staging God knows how many provocations at the border, blaming them on, quote, the regime. It was him. It's all these people, these guaramberos in Colombia and Venezuela that are funded by the U.S. empire that are doing this. Millions of lives are at stake, and we must do everything in our power to resist the bloodthirsty Trump regime, to be unified with our brothers and sisters in Venezuela and in the U.S. to say no sanctions, no coup, no war, regime change here, not Venezuela. Regime change here. The people of Venezuela see you, they hear you. We stand with them just as they stand with us. ¡Viva Venezuela! ¡Viva la revolución!
Hands off! Venezuela! Hands off! Venezuela! Next up, we're gonna have Johnny from Arab Americans Fasidia.
Hello everyone, thank you. Thank you for coming out. Deja vu all over again. March 2019, Venezuela looks so much like March 2011 Syria. March 2011 Syria, I've took some of the crowd here, I've taken to Syria to show them with the biggest campaign, the biggest media campaign in the history of the world of lies and deception. We've never seen such a revolution being manufactured like we did in Syria. Not only were they not telling the truth, they were reversing the fact. Complete reversal of the fact, where the majority of the Syrian nation, Syrian citizens were there with their government and the reform program they had, less than 10% of the population. The world was saying, this is the people we're listening to. We need to have democracy in Syria. They wanted to play the democracy game in Syria, a country that has parliament elections since 1948, while the other puppet reactionary regime in the Middle East that they put in power don't even have a constitution. So if they want to play the democracy game, why not play it here in the United States first? Right? If it's about popularity, if they think Maduro is not popular, then hell, he's a lot more popular than Trump is. So why don't we start here, have Pelosi become the new interim president, and let's see how that suits Mr. Trump. All right, guys, the only difference between 2011 and today is you guys. You are here. We had no one standing with Syria the first year. I can tell you we went to the federal building 2011. I gotta exclude two organizations. I think you all know them, Answers Coalition and International Action Center and Veterans for Peace. They seen it from day one. They were on our side from day one. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations, a lot of progressive organizations were on the wrong side. We were in that federal building, we're taking a small corner, just Syrian patriots, nobody but Syrians. We did not have anybody to pay to come stand with us. We were all standing with this flag while the other three corners in the federal building were wearing the Syrian flag on their feet. They were stomping on it. I had to go over and talk to some. I couldn't find one Syrian. I finally found a friend of mine. Unfortunate, and what's very sad, a Palestinian friend that we stood shoulder to shoulder back in 1990, 91 in that same federal building where we were fighting for the cause of Palestine. I told him, my friend, what's wrong with you? What happened to you? He goes, we gotta get this killer out. I said, what killer? Who are you talking about? He goes, your president. I said, he's my president. What do you have to do with it? He said, well, I said, what are you gonna do? You gotta couple with the empire against Syria. He goes, yeah, if it has to be on a US tent, then let it be. I looked at him, I said, I don't know what happened to you, my friend, but the media just whipped your head. I said, you cannot choose your solidarity. You are either with all struggles against the empire or you are with the empire. I told him that, and that reminded me of someone told me, why are you leaving work today and running to Venezuela? What do you have to do with Venezuela? I told him a little story that I'm going to share with you. 2016, I took a trip to New York, me and some prominent Syrians. You know, the war has turned, the people started knowing the truth. We had everybody in support of us. I wanted to go to the United Nations and give thanks to one ambassador. Well, we had more than a few ambassadors, actually. We met with the Russian and the Chinese. But one in particular was Rafael Ramirez, the Venezuelan ambassador, the representative to Venezuela to the United Nations. One thing Mr. Rafael did when in 2012, at that time he was still in the government of late Hugo Chavez. He was the oil minister, right? Or the energy minister. He was the first to defy the US embargo by sending a tanker of oil to the Syrian shores. Halfway across the world, we got oil from our friends in Venezuela. Now that is solidarity, my friends. At the time where the neighboring countries of Syria were smuggling weapons and mercenaries, when Turkey and Israel were letting their borders open for every mercenary from around the world to come and kill Syrian citizens, Venezuela was sending oil to have the Syrian people be warm in the winter. That's what I call solidarity, my friend. And I have good news for you. Very good news. I asked him, why did you do that, man? You're in the oil ministry. I mean, that can get you in a lot of trouble. He said it was very important for us as a government of Hugo Chavez to stand with solidarity, to see Syria, that little nation, defeat the empire, to never let Syria kneel down. Because we were going to be next, and we are going to be next. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the Venezuelan government are on high alert. You don't know that. They don't tell you that in Western media. They know it was coming. They're prepared for it. So we tell them one thing. I tell Maduro one thing, man. You got only two models to model after. The Ukraine, where they're gonna play the democracy game, the empire's gonna take over and you're gonna flee, or you play the Syrian game, where you face the plot head on, you resist. They're gonna embargo you, they're gonna sanction you, they're gonna send weapons across borders, they're gonna send contras, they're gonna have neighboring armies going in, more sanctions, but you're gonna stand tall and you're gonna win and you're gonna defeat the empire like Syria did. Thank you so much for having me, guys. Thank you.
Next up, I want to invite Juan Jose Gutierrez, Full Rights for Immigrants Coalition.
In the United States of America, we have a lot of decent people. I would say the great majority of the population of the U.S. are decent people. Today, we had some of the most distinguished members of the American people take to the streets to say hell no to aggression and military invasion in our name. I am here today on behalf of the millions of undocumented men and women who have come to America for a better life. And I understand that if the United States is threatening and going after the government and the people of Venezuela, it will not be long before they start plotting and organizing an invasion of Mexico. Because most of the undocumented come from Mexico, and recently, last July, we elected a progressive government in Mexico, and as these new policies that are anti-neoliberal began to be implemented, there is no telling what American imperialism will do. And so I want to make it clear today that we're here because it was important that the Venezuelan people know that in America there are decent people like all of us, and like the great majority of the American people that haven't yet decided to take to the streets like we did today, so that no American president can do aggression and crimes in the name of the American people. Yeah. This is not the end, it's the beginning. And I want to say to the people of Venezuela, you can count on us, and I want to extend a great thank you to the Unanswered Coalition for taking the lead in bringing us together and bringing us to the streets, because this breaks the goal of this lying media that is, pitching lie after lie to the American people to justify the unjustifiable, which is an aggression and a coup against the people of Venezuela. So thank you, Answer. Y bien rápido, para que me entiendan en Venezuela, presidente Nicolás Maduro, heroico pueblo de Venezuela, sepan que en nombre de los millones de inmigrantes y de la clase trabajadora consciente de los Estados Unidos, cuentan con nosotros y no vamos a dar un paso para atrás y no vamos a permitir que los invadan y los destruyan, pero sabemos que ustedes son los que van a ser más responsables de su propia defensa, de su soberanía. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
All right, up next we're going to bring up Carol Francis Likens of the Interfaith Communities United for Justice and Peace.
Hello. The Interfaith Communities United for Justice and Peace, the ICUJP, was founded right after 9/11, bringing together Muslims, Jews, Christians, and others who saw the need to resist war and other Islamophobic hate crimes. Since then, the group has met nearly every Friday at 7 a.m. in the morning under the banner, "Religious communities must stop blessing war and violence." And from the crusades and inquisitions of centuries past to the silence and support of wars from the modern pulpit, it has been, we know, the dominant religion that has been most in need of hearing this message. The ICUJP has taken stands against wars and violence from Afghanistan to Iraq to Standing Rock and Los Angeles. Now we join with all of you to march and speak out against our government's military, economic, and media war against the people of Venezuela and their elected leaders. And since poverty is violence, and it's been through the Bolivarian revolution that the Venezuelan people have been lifting themselves up out of poverty, any attempt to thwart this has been and is an act of violence. The ICUJP calls on people of faith, Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, humanists, to struggle together in solidarity with the people of Venezuela. So let us know if we can assist you in getting your faith institution out from under the sin of neutrality. Because, as Archbishop Desmond Tutu has said, if an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse, and you say that you're neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. Thanks.
Let's make some noise. We see. Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Hands up! Venezuela! Little louder! Hands up! Venezuela! 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 We're gonna continue our program because I'm gonna bring up an anti-war veteran and co-host of the podcast Eyes Lift, Mike Preissner!
Ooh, just in time for my talk on Venezuela, guys. Counter-protester. Listen a little, you will learn something.
I just fucking saw you.
Thanks for everyone letting the yellow vest handle those people while everyone else just continues with our rally as normal. But I just want to say it's very special for me to be here. Hands up, Venezuela! Hands up! 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 Venezuela! Chávez vive! La lucha sigue! Chávez vive, vive! La lucha sigue, 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 sigue! Chávez vive, vive! Chávez vive! La lucha sigue, sigue! Chávez vive, vive! La lucha sigue, sigue! The people united will never be defeated! 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 Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive, vive! Chávez vive, vive! Chávez vive, vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive! Chávez vive, 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 vive! Fuera Guaidó! 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 Hey everyone, if you're not wearing a yellow vest, let's come back to the stage so they do not succeed in disrupting our demonstration. They came to hijack it. They didn't do a good job. They show actually the reality in Venezuela. When I was in Venezuela during the protests in 2017, if you're not wearing a yellow vest, please come back to the stage so they don't win having a victory stopping the program. But I want to say that when I was in Venezuela during the height of the protest movement, where the most amount of people were being killed in the streets by the protesters, it turns out, this is what it looked like. Masses of people that supported socialism, that supported democracy, that supported sovereignty, that supported social programs, and a small group, a tiny group of rich people who couldn't do anything, who were mad that they couldn't win democratically, so they used violence, disruption, anti-democratic measures to try to get power. So the people that came gave us a very good example, and my first-hand experience, of what the situation looked like in Venezuela. And that's what the situation in Venezuela looks like today, and how since 1998, when Chavez was elected and turned the tide of history and said this country belongs to the workers, belongs to the poor. They are the ones in power. It's not, when people talk about Maduro, we want Maduro gone. When they hold the sign of Maduro there, they're not talking about Maduro, a man. They're talking about a movement, the Chavez movement, that has millions and millions of people, 8 to 10 million people. It's the largest social force, not just in Venezuela, but in all of Latin America for socialism. That's what they want now. They want to remove from the political landscape the biggest social movement in Venezuela. That is fascism. So these demonstrators here, they want fascism in Venezuela. How do you think they're going to hold on to their rule? If Guaidó becomes president and Maduro leaves, what happens to the 10 million people that voted and support Maduro? Are they going to just leave? No, they're going to have to impose fascism in that country to rule the country by a coup backed by the United States. That's what they want there. They want war. They want fascism. Well, now what I was going to say is it's important for me to be here because on this day, this very day, 16 years ago, I was sitting on a tarmac in Italy loading bullets into magazine after magazine as a 19-year-old about to head to war in Iraq in March 16th, 2003. And I was going believing what we were being told, that there was a humanitarian crisis, that there was no democracy, and that we go to help people. Of course, that's not at all what I saw. Me and my fellow soldiers very quickly, people who thought we were going to have careers in the military, decided we were getting the fuck out immediately. But I came home, I thought this is such a lie. They're lying, they lied about everything. And they lied, and it was easy for me to see right away. So I came home thinking, well, of course this is going to be a national scandal. We're dying. Hundreds of soldiers are dying. Thousands of Iraqis are dying. 1 million ended up dying. People are coming on in body bags, and it turned out they lied. They lied about why we were going. So I came home expecting a national scandal. Instead, I came home and I saw the government, the politicians weren't debating about whether or not to send Bush and Rumsfeld and Cheney to The Hague, but they were debating about how they didn't do the war right. They didn't send enough troops, the Democratic Party said. They didn't give us enough equipment when we went to war. That's why the Iraq war was going badly. And the 10 years went by or more
where year after year, thousands more came home in pieces and body bags, and the Iraqi people became more and more crushed. Today, that nation is a crushed country. It will take generations of Iraqis to recover from how the United States saved them. So I was angry when I came home because I wanted a single politician, to express what I was feeling. And that's why it's important for me to be here, because the one politician, the very first politician I heard say something that resonated with what I was feeling, the anger I was feeling about the war, was a man who went to the United Nations and said, "I still smell sulfur in this room because the devil was just here, George W. Bush." That was Hugo Chavez. I had no idea who he was, and it made me want to learn about who he was, what socialism was, and I realized that he wasn't a man, he was a movement who stood for something, stood for socialism. And that's when we say, Chavez vive la lucha sigue. When I was in Venezuela, Chavez is still alive in Venezuela, and he's alive today with all of you. And it's also the anniversary, I don't think I heard it mentioned yet, this is also the anniversary, March 19th, I believe, in 2010, when the United States saved Libya, who is having a humanitarian crisis. We're going to go and save them. Look at Libya today. Now, I want to say that the idea that I came home, there is no Justice Department to hold Bush and Cheney accountable. The Democrats were all for the war, with a few Congress people that were an exception. Every branch of government was for the war. Was for a war that was obviously for oil. Killing, maiming, destroying people's lives, imposing a sectarian dictatorship for oil, just for that, for profits, for banking. And so you realize, it's not that we elected in imperialists, it's that this is their government. This government belongs to big oil. All of its functions, everything it does is serve the interests of those who own capital, who own mines, who own oil companies, who own defense industries. That's who it's for. So when they're telling us to go to war in Venezuela, of course it's not a coincidence that they have the largest oil reserves in the world. But we don't expect anything from our government because they work for the big business. So of course they're using their military, their government bodies to push sanctions and coup and possibly invasion. And the Iraq war should teach us that they're willing to do the unthinkable. No one thought that, no, they're not going to really kill all those people and send all these people to die, but they did. And they kept it going year after year, and millions of lives are destroyed as a result of it. But it's not just that the United States wants to go to Venezuela and take their oil. It's not just the United States, it's Canada with its giant mining corporations that want to overthrow the government so they get their mines. It's the European Union who wants to go there to get their gold and to get their cobalt. It's all of the capitalist, imperialist colonizers of nations that want to ravage Venezuela, and they want to destroy it. They want to destroy every nation where formerly colonized people are rising up, charting their own path, and just have independence. But Venezuela is something more about Venezuela than there was about Iraq, than there was about Libya. Is they don't just want to destroy Venezuela because they took on their oil resources and decided to use it for public good, so people can have houses and free healthcare and free education and things like that. That would be enough to get yourself bombed and overthrown by the United States, but it's more than that. It's about socialism. And all the this is about capitalism attacking and trying to destroy socialism off the face of the planet. That's why John Bolton announced that the Trump administration's top priority would be to destroy Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. This is a larger war than just U.S. oil companies wanting to go there and take it. And that's why this is so important. Because, we've been fighting against capitalism since capitalism existed. Over a century of struggle, of people just like us fighting this system. It's such an important struggle to have soldiers in Venezuela because the old saying was, it's either socialism or barbarism. That we don't end this system that is brutal to workers, that leaves so many people poor and hungry and in need when we have enough to give everyone a good life. It was socialism or barbarism was the saying, but today it's socialism or extinction. We are on the tipping point of an environmental crisis that could mean the end of the human species on Earth. That is not a small thing. And socialism is the only thing that can save us from that precipice. It is now. It's our generation. If we don't do it, and if all the kids here don't do it, it's over. And so there's no greater need to fight for socialism than now. Defending and standing in solidarity with everyone under attack for imperialism is important. But of course we must stand for what Venezuela is fighting for, because this is a global struggle of capitalism versus socialism. And we don't just want to win so people can have a better life, but so we have a life at all. Thank you.
All right.
I'm Andrew Nance, a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation.
Okay, that's it for the live stream. Thanks for watching.
Chavez vive!
Check us out. Occupy.
Chavez vive!
Yourself.org/live.
Chavez vive, vive!
La lucha sigue, sigue.